I think there's an issue here. I actually think if you look at it, you will find that the changes to the fiduciary definition under DOL actually bring it closer into alignment with the definition of fiduciary under securities laws. The problem is not so much with the definition, but then what flows from that definition under ERISA. And, when I first started looking at this issue, I assumed, it's fiduciary duty, I'm all for it. As we've looked at the issues more closely, there are issues with the ERISA proposal, with the DOL proposal on fiduciary duty, and they're varied. One of them is that there is a conflict with the business conduct rules for swap dealers. And, I was involved working with the drafters and writing that section of the legislation, and the clear intent was to avoid bringing the ERISA fiduciary duty into this interaction between swap dealers and special entities, because it then brings, you can't have an adverse interest, you basically can't be a counterparty. Now, members worked very hard to draft the legislation in a way that didn't bring ERISA into play. Under the DOL fiduciary definition, there are things that swap dealers would have to do to satisfy the business conduct rules that would make them fiduciaries under the DOL definition, and then would preclude them from acting as counterparties, precisely what Congress was trying to avoid. There are other problems. I think a legitimate concern about what happens in, say, the individual retirement plan tax.
I'm hearing a lot of concerns on that.
Right. If you bring into play the DOL, the ERISA restrictions on any third-party compensation, say 12B1 fees, these are not irresolvable problems. But the real issue here is, so DOL rolled out what I think is a very well-intended definition, and one that it does in fact come closer to the SEC definition, but it rolled them out without putting out the prohibited transaction exemption explanations at the same time, so people don't know how it's going to work in the real world. And all of ERISA seems to, I'm not an ERISA expert, but all of it seems to be devoted to figuring out what the prohibited transaction exemptions are. And so if you can't sort of reasonably comment on the DOL proposal of the fiduciary definition unless you know how it's going to interact with those exemptions. So far, we would very much like to see the agency move forward with a proposal that is designed to benefit investors. There are issues with that definition that need to be resolved before it is final.
I see that my time has expired, but I do have